Number 1.
I've got to preface this a bit with my father's background. I feel like it explains things pretty well. Kinda. My dad's side of the family are pretty damn country. My grandfather was a retired gunsmith, and my grandmother grows her own veggies. My dad played football all throughout high school, and when he wasn't doing that, he was hunting and fishing. I grew up used to the fact that my dad did things the country way. He went to feed stores and got vaccinations for all of our dogs, and administered them himself. When they got too old to eat, he put them down and dug the graves himself. When his arch-fucking nemesis shot up our house, he took justice into his own hands. Or attempted to. My dad's first company was a pretty successful fire safety company in the area, until his best friend and co-owner ran off with all the clients. This left my family with nothing. We were very, very poor, and had to relocate 300 miles away to live with his parents. This should have been the last we'd heard of his old best friend. But evil never dies. Or whatever. Flash forward 11 years. We'd been living in a small town south of Dallas for about 6 years now, and things were okay. We were still poor, just not as poor. But we were living in a house again, and the business was doing well, so things were good. Until Jimmy Ray Jr. showed up. Jimmy was the eldest son of the dirtbag who fucked over my dad, and he came to us, asking for a job, so he could get away from his shitty father. He had a wife and baby on the way, and he just had to get out from under the thumb of his father. My dad has a thing for taking in strays. So soon, Jimmy was working for my dad. Now Jimmy was a real fucking creep. He used to hit on me constantly, going so far as to pull me in his lap as often as he could, and delighted in asking me if certain things turned me on. I hated him, and told my parents this constantly. They wouldn't believe that Jimmy was a bad guy. But then, things started getting really weird. We lived just outside city limits at the time, and there was always a lot of space between you and your neighbors. This meant that lots of activity could go on, and they probably wouldn't notice. This also meant that the truck parked down the street all day every day was actually pretty visible to us. At first, we thought the old couple down at the bend had purchased a new truck, and maybe there just wasn't enough space in their driveway, until my mom drove by on her way back from groceries and saw a man in the truck with binoculars in his lap. This continued on for weeks, until one day, the truck just wasn't there anymore. Then, other stuff started. It was a Monday night, and everyone was knocked out. Dad had work, Mom had work, and my two brothers and I had school the next day. Imagine the terror when the back door sounds like someone is going at it with a battering ram. Riley, the oldest of my two brothers, was first to jump up. I was next, despite having the room furthest away from the living room. The door was pushed in, being held by the chain. Everyone else came filing in after us, confused and tired. Riley started to shout that someone had kicked in the door, but my parents wouldn't hear it, and said the weather must have done it. After all, it was a stormy night. Riley and I disagreed. It wasn't that stormy, and the nails that held the chain to the wall had been ripped nearly all the way out. The doorknob was messed up. It wasn't the weather. A couple more weeks passed and we're dealing with the same shit. Fire extinguishers going missing, doors getting hammered on, our dog losing her fucking shit every night. The final straw for my dad. My stoner-ass brother took a couple of his friends out to my van in the middle of the night to smoke. Our driveway was fairly long, and my van was parked at the very end. It needed to be fixed up, so better to have it out of the way. There was still driveway to spare, as it was long and very wide. Riley says they heard the truck, but just assumed it had stopped at the stop sign. But then, there was gunfire. We were talking sprays of bullets. And instead of ducking for cover, the dumbass busts out of the van with his friends just in time for the shooter to jump back into his truck and the driver to peel out. Well, my dad sure as hell believes us now. Instead of calling the cops, He called Jimmy, asked him if he knew anyone with a truck that matched the description my brother provided, and when he said yes, it all clicked into place. You see, Jimmy's dad was real pissed his son went to work for the competition. He took it as a personal attack that my dad had accepted Jimmy with open arms, and he was willing to do what it took to get Jimmy to quit, or convince my dad to fire him. Instead, my dad hatched a plan. He and Jimmy spent days shoving long nails into a thick rope. They covered the windows. They stocked the barn and the house with provisions. They sent the rest of us away for Thanksgiving, and waited. The plan was simple. They assumed that since we were being watched, Jimmy's dad would think we had all gone off for the holidays. He'd probably try to break in while we were away. And then, when he did, he would find my dad waiting for him, gun in hand. And if he managed to get away, that's when Jimmy, who had been forced to wait in the barn, would pull the nail-riddled rope across the street and bust their tires. But no one ever showed. You see, Jimmy had decided to go back to his dad. Told him so. Even went so far as to make copies of all of our invoices. And since he had given some to his old man, the guy decided to leave us alone. But Jimmy didn't leave right away. No, he had plans. Plans that entailed trapping a 17-year-old girl in a room. Plans that involved betraying his wife. Plans that involved betraying the man who had taken him in. Now, he never got far with me, but he did manage to steal half of our clients and send us back into a financial tailspin. Like father, like son. So Jim, let's not meet. You wouldn't like it very much.
Number 2.
This happened last July, while me and my boyfriend's family were on vacation in Carolina Beach, North Carolina. Every year my boyfriend's family rents a pretty nice beach house for a week around July, and takes a vacation. This was my first year being invited. It's beautiful. A lovely peach color, 4 bedrooms, and only a block off the beach. I'm not sure how to explain this, but the house is on what seems like stilts, and you can park your car underneath the house. It's exposed, and completely open below the house, so it's not a garage. We parked our car down there. There was a table for hanging out, the laundry room, and also a private enclosed outdoor shower down there as well. The house had 2 upstairs porches, just to walk up the steps from the car to get to the porch indoors, into the beach house. Now directly across our beach house is a little mom-and-pop restaurant. To the left is a gas station, and to the right is a 24/7 laundromat. The main porch is facing the restaurant. You can see all these places from underneath the house and the porch. It's pretty open. This is normally a pretty quiet tourist town, and the family has been coming here for years, and has never had an issue before. It's our next to last day on vacation, and the landlord of the house has always been good to the family, so we wash all the bed sheets for him, including a heavy down comforter that needs to go to the laundromat, instead of our washer and dryer. Boyfriend's mom and I take the blanket over to the laundromat around 10 p.m. We stay out on the porch to watch the laundromat, and make sure no one comes and steals our blanket. We're checking on the blanket, and it's taking way longer than we originally thought. It needed to be washed twice in the longest setting to get clean, apparently. By the time we put it in the dryer, it's 1 a.m. Somewhere between 10 and 1, a maintenance man shows up and is working on a few of the machines. He's nice. Says, "Hi, how are you? Don't use these 3 machines as they've been running subpar." We go back to the house and the family joins us, all sitting on the porch drinking, talking about how we're about to leave, and generally having a good time. It's 2:15 a.m. now, and my boyfriend's mom asked me to go check on the blanket, and run it another time if necessary. I have a bad feeling for some reason. Blamed it on the booze, and asked if my boyfriend's dad could do it. Boyfriend's dad is a pretty huge guy, and is scary as hell if you don't know him. He says fine, goes and runs it a little longer. Now the boyfriend and me are pretty avid marijuana smokers. His family doesn't care. So we go in the private outdoor shower, lock the door, and start toking away. There's a seat in there separate from the shower part, so we just chill there. A few minutes later, we hear some loud banging from the laundromat. We go out and see that the maintenance man is still there. We say whatever and go back to smoking. At exactly 2:27, I was playing on my phone. We hear someone scream in a panicked voice.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck, dude?
We head out of the outdoor shower and see a man booking it across the street towards our house, cuts through our yard, and runs right beside the shower. The maintenance man runs to his car and whips out of the laundromat and turns down the road, away from our house, hits a parked car, continues screeching down the street, and finally wrecking. We can't see the car. We just heard a loud crash. We go upstairs to everyone on the porch, and we're like, "Did you see that? Did that just happen?" We call the police, and they're there within 5 minutes. One cop goes down the road to the accident. There's a shoe and some other stuff on the road, and the laundromat door is still hanging wide open. They police tape everything off, and being so close, we hear them radio that there's blood everywhere, and they need to call others. 2 more cops show up. There's now 4 cops in this little laundromat parking lot. We give them our story. They cannot physically write most of us as witnesses, as we were drinking, but they still want to know what we saw. They start searching for weapons where the one guy ran, which was mainly through our yard. Me and the boyfriend are freaking out because not only did we smoke a lot of bud right there, but we also were smoking right when the guy ran past us. The cops don't keep us updated on anything. At all. We got some looks from them for the smell, but they didn't say anything. After they complete their investigation, we see a cleaning crew come and they then lock the laundromat doors, after we get our blanket. We see in the newspaper the next day that a homeless man came in and stabbed the maintenance man, and was trying to rob him in the process. When the maintenance man got a good swing on the guy, he ran out and away towards the beach. The police found the homeless guy a few blocks away. I guess the maintenance man was trying to get to the laundromat owner's house, also a few blocks in the other direction when he got in his car. The maintenance man got taken to the hospital and was okay. The homeless man obviously got taken to prison. I'm really glad that I asked my boyfriend's dad to go check on the blanket, because I just missed being in the laundromat during this whole ordeal by less than 20 minutes. After all the commotion was gone, we all felt like we deserved a big blunt and a few stiff drinks, then locked the doors and went to bed. Nothing else happened for the rest of our vacation. So, homeless guy who really needed some money, let's not meet. Ever.
Number 3.
Recently, and by recently, I mean like 8 months ago, I had never had an experience before this. I moved to an island in the South Pacific, and I've gotten the hiking bug, so I try and get out to new locations as much as I possibly can, what with work eating into my precious time. This happened about 2 weeks ago. Since I live in the South Pacific region, it gets mighty hot. Of course, I'm not a masochist, so I try to do all my hiking in the early hours of the morning, or in the evening, when it starts getting cool. I've never been afraid of going hiking by myself. I did it when I lived in Oregon, never ran into any problems with it, but my island isn't my friendly home state. I always carry pepper spray when I used to go hiking in Montana and Wyoming. I sometimes carry a handgun to ward off anything I couldn't take on, whether it was a bear or a person. But I'd always gotten off considerably lucky. I got to the trailhead at about 6:30 in the evening. The trail was called 1,000 Steps. But in all honesty, it was mostly just a walk straight down to the cliff and then a grueling journey back up. I didn't want to go, but my dog, Mad Moxie, needed to be walked, and I had done the hike so many times I could probably do it in my sleep. The first thing I noticed when I pulled up was an old, rickety, rusted-out blue pickup truck with a big plastic tarp over the bed to keep out the rain. These are pretty common on the island, affectionately earning them the name Guam Bombs. I didn't think much of it as I hooked up Moxie and started heading down the trail. I tried my best to ignore the mosquitoes that were making a meal out of my exposed neck. Heading down the trail was relatively easy, avoiding the banana spider webs. I felt the stress of my day slowly unwind as the underbrush grew darker and night approached. I made it all the way down to the water's edge, when I noticed a man standing about 100 yards away. It was dark enough now that I could only see a silhouette, so I have no idea if he was looking at me or at the water, but I chose to ignore him and instead pull Moxie's ball from my backpack and throw it for her a few times to get all her wiggles out. After some time, the man started walking over to me and stopped maybe about 10 feet away. Now, I'm not a tiny waif of a woman. I'm 23 years old, and I stand at about 5'6", and this guy was just a couple inches taller than me. But most of the locals were on the smaller side. But something about him just felt weird. "Evening," I greeted as he nodded, and looked down at Moxie, who had just returned from running after her ball. I stooped down to pet her now humidity-soaked head, as the man kept his eyes trained on my dog. "Can I help you, sir?"
Pretty dog. You alone?
He responded mildly. "I have my dog," I said lamely, trying to sound braver than I was feeling. "I'm never alone." I tried to emphasize on the fact that I had my dog with me, but the man seemed unfazed by my statement.
Oh. Have a good night.
With that, he turned around and started walking back towards the trailhead. I watched his shadow disappear into the trees, and waited for about half an hour before I too started walking back towards the path, my mind on high alert as Moxie pulled me through the trees and up the cliffside. The crickets pierced the night as I climbed the steps, illuminated by my flashlight. My hands were full with Moxie's leash and my light, but you could bet your buns that I would have pepper spray out if I had an extra hand. Finally, my light pierced the trees to the top, and I practically booked it up the hill. When I got to the top, I nearly shat myself. The rusted blue pickup truck was sitting in the parking lot still, but their passenger side door was practically touching my car's driver's side. Inside the car, I could faintly see two men sitting in the cab, and I could feel them watching me. Slowly, I approached my car, walking as far over to the passenger side as I could, and kept Moxie real close as I opened the door and crawled over to the driver's side. At that moment, the door of the pickup truck flew open, and my dog started going apeshit, barking at the two people who were now outside of their car and trying to break into mine. Hard to my chest, I rammed the keys into the ignition and tore out of the parking lot so quickly, I nearly took my mirror off. I called my mom as soon as I got home, and she begged me to call the police. Unfortunately, the police here on the island aren't as vigilant as they are on the mainland, and that area is known for car thefts, mugging, and other debaucheries, as I learned from my coworkers later that week. Earlier this month, another girl actually disappeared from that area without a trace, and it makes me wonder if the men in the blue pickup truck didn't have something to do with it. If I hadn't had Moxie with me, would I have been mugged or worse? If I learned anything from this experience, is that for my lady hikers, please always take pepper spray with you, go hiking in groups, and always let someone know where you're going. It might just save your life someday. And to the men in the pickup truck, let's never meet again.
Number 4.
My story takes place 19 years ago. I'm a female, and I was 16 at the time. I'm 5'7", was about 130 pounds, and I like to think that I'm strong, but I couldn't take on 2 young men. So it begins with my mother and stepfather going away on vacation, and leaving my 17-year-old sister and I home alone. They did this quite often. My parents were not winning any parenting awards. My sister and I didn't get along either. She was a nasty piece of work. Luckily, she decided to go stay at a friend's house while my parents were away. I was nervous about being alone, so I had my boyfriend staying with me. He was a pugnacious dickhead, but I'm glad he was there. One night, Brett and I were at my house. We had just started messing around, and I heard a really loud knock at the door. My room was in the basement, but at the landing area between the stairs. You know how some staircases are broken up and there's a turnaround area. That's the landing. There was a window that I could see the stairs that led up to the alcove of our front porch. I could see 2 people standing there, and just as I was peeking out to see them better, one of them saw me. I remember feeling the breath sucked out of my chest. There were 2 young men standing on my porch. It was almost midnight, and I had no idea who the hell they were. The guy that saw me let his friend know, and they both looked in the window and asked me to come to the door. My boyfriend had gone upstairs to open the door, and I remember freaking out because I told him not to. He was one of those guys that thought he was Mr. Tough Guy, and believed he could fight anyone. He was telling the guys to leave just as I joined him at the door. They saw me, and called me by name, and asked for me to let them in. Brett told them to fuck off. One guy, I think he said his name was Wes or Les, something like that, said, "Come outside. We just want to talk to you," to my boyfriend. I said, "No thanks, we're going to bed," and shut the door. I was really confused and getting very frightened. They stood on my doorstep for a few minutes, then started knocking again. Wes explained to me, through the door, that he was my sister's friend, and that she told him I was alone at home and that they should come by. I knew my sister, and I believed them. That did not, however, make me stupid. I told them to leave. They started kicking the door. It was shaking, and I seriously feared that it would not hold up. I was so scared that I ran into my kitchen to call the police. I was assured that they would be there very soon, and to lock the doors and stay on the phone. Meanwhile, Brett was still yelling at them, which only served to piss these guys off more. I begged him to shut up, but he would not listen to me. I was locking all the doors and windows upstairs, while Brett went down to check the doors. Down in the basement, there was a huge mudroom area, and had a thick wooden door made of 2x4 planks, kind of like a barn door. The door had a big old lock on it, some spring-loaded turnbolt, and also had a plank to set across it, like a barricade. One of the guys was pounding on this door, and Brett heard him tell the other guy to go try the back door. This stupid door was one of those 1960s things that had a happy little square window, right at face level, with a little curtain across it. I was at this door, trying to jam a chair under the flimsy knob, when I looked up and saw the unnamed guy just looking in at me. I screamed, and the dispatcher asked me if I was okay. I barely squeaked out that one of the guys was looking right at me through the window. He was older than me, probably about 20, and he was tall. He looked scary as hell. His dark eyes were drilling into me, and he wore this creepy, placid smile on his face. I'd never seen this man before, but he knew my name. He tapped on the window with one finger, never breaking eye contact, and said, "Becky, let me in." I couldn't breathe. The knob was rattling as he was messing with it. He said again, "Let me in, Becky. I just want to see if you're okay. I just want to talk." He stared at me. I didn't say anything. I was just 3 feet from him, with my back pressed to the fridge when he suddenly started beating on the door and screamed,
"Let me the fuck in this house. If I have to break in, I will kill you both. So just open the fucking door."
He looked maniacal. Then there was a loud knock at the front door, and the man went silent. He gave me the most hateful sneer I'd ever seen. I heard shouting and he ran down the back stairs and into the woods along the back of my yard. Brett had gone to the door. It was the cops. There were 2 female officers at the front door, and one was just starting to raise her voice asking where I was when I came to the door too. I was so relieved. I started sobbing. I told them they had run away through the woods. Luckily, the woods were not deep. They actually ran along the bank of a large river, and there was a bridge just up from the woods, met the road. One officer ran around the back, while one stayed to get a description and take my statement. Officer number 1 came back and spoke to officer number 2. Said she saw them running across the bridge. They both left in a hurry, hopped in the cruiser, and sped off. I was still crying and shaking, but I was absolutely furious at Brett for riling them up. I went to make myself some tea, thinking of all the ways it could kill my sister when she got home. I had so much anger, fear, and adrenaline pumping through me, I could have ripped her to shreds at that moment. 20 minutes later, the cruiser came back. There were 2 guys sitting in the back seat, and the officers wanted me to confirm it was the right guys. I looked through the window and saw them. They still looked terrifying to me. They were in cuffs and could not get to me, but I would not get close to them. Neither would look at me. I confirmed it was them, and we spoke a bit. I told the cops about my sister suggesting that these 2 men should come see me. Officer number 2 kind of mumbled, "What a bitch." I had to agree. I pressed charges for attempted forcible entry, property damage. They had broken a window in the living room, trespassing, disorderly conduct, and attempted assault. Initially, they both pled not guilty, but later admitted to some of the charges. They both got 18 months in jail, and were forbidden to contact me or my boyfriend ever again, and to be at least 500 meters from me at all times. I never heard from them again. I confronted my sister about it, and of course she denied it, then laughed about it. Laughed at me. She was an awful person. I have no idea what their true intentions were, as they maintained that they were just there to talk to me. I'm thankful I didn't have to find out. Hey there. Sorry for my absence. As you may be able to guess, my new brand of videos aren't ready yet, as I've been experiencing some technical difficulties lately with this new software. But I just had to give you guys something. It was very uncomfortable with waiting this long. I'm sorry to my subscribers, my vegans. I'm committed to this channel, and so I don't want to wait this long again to post another video. I'll continue to post as I did before, as I continue to work on this program. There will be no more 2-week gaps, so again, I apologize. Anyway, in other news, I think these stories are pretty cool. The next video I plan to do another theme, but I'm not sure of what yet. I guess you'll have to wait and find out. If it's fear you're after, welcome home.